Okay, good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to welcome you to this moment, the defense of Marcella's thesis on developing the robustness of an EFL teacher's reasoning with an eye on pedagogical decisions, a sociocultural perspective on teacher education. We deeply appreciate your presence today. And I would also like to extend my sincere gratitude to the committee members, Ester and Matheus, for their time, for their valuable time and expertise, as well as Carol from PPGI for ensuring that this session runs smoothly. So I guess that without further ado, let us begin. Marcella, you have 10 minutes to present, and then each member has 20 minutes to interact with you. Okay?
Okay. So good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Marcella Barontini, and I'm honored to be here to present my master's thesis. And first of all, I'd like to thank the examination committee for being here, for your engagement with my research. Also, I'd like to thank my advisor, Professor Adriana, for all your support and guidance throughout my journey. And today I'm going to walk you through my study, which is entitled Developing the Robustness of an EFL Teacher's Reasoning with an Eye on Pedagogical Decisions, a sociocultural perspective on teacher education. And as you can see in the title, my research is in teacher education. And the objective of the research is to see how an EFL teacher develops the robustness of her reasoning teaching through mentor-guided inquiry and responsive mediation, particularly in ways that support her in integrating theoretical insights with pedagogical decision-making in the classroom, ultimately enhancing her performance and fostering her development toward competence. In order to do so, the main research question is, how does an EFL teacher develop the robustness of her reasoning teaching through mentor-guided inquiry and responsive mediation? To answer the main research question, I developed 3 specific research questions. The first is, to what extent does an EFL teacher initially understand the post-method approach and teach in accordance with it? The second is, how does her understanding of the post-method approach in her classroom practice change as her pedagogical choices are inquired into and responsive mediation is offered? And the last, in what ways can the changes in her understanding in classroom practice be attributed to the mentor's inquiry and mediation? So the rationale for this study is grounded in Vygotsky's sociocultural theory and teacher education within this perspective. And it views learning as a socially mediated process. It means that development occurs through mediation with others and cultural tools, language, for example, and that help us make sense of the world. And this quote by Vygotsky, through others we become ourselves, captures the essence of that idea. It reminds us that learning doesn't happen in isolation. It is through shared experiences and mediation that we grow. And complementing this theoretical view, we have an important distinction made by Vygotsky: everyday and scientific concepts. Everyday concepts emerge from lived experiences, so they are intuitive and practical. And scientific concepts require formal instruction and conscious reflection. And also this leads to another distinction made by Kasdan: performance preceding competence, in which a teacher's classroom performance may precede their conceptual understanding of what they do. And following the sociocultural perspective, we have another key concept of the theory, zone of proximal development, which is traditionally viewed as the distance between what a learner can do alone and what they can achieve with guidance. And ZPD highlights the importance of guidance, which leads us to another concept, responsive mediation, which is the dialogic interactions between a mentor and a mentee to support cognitive development. And these tailored interactions, they can be more or less direct, which leads us to explicit versus implicit mediation. Explicit mediation names and defines concepts, while implicit mediation invites reflection through questions and hints. Both forms of mediations aim to foster autonomy and conceptual thinking, and this is closely related to reasoning teaching, which can be defined as a teacher's capacity to make pedagogical choices consciously, grounded in both theory and context. And now I'd like to present the English language approach used in this study, the post-method approach, which is a framework that empowers teachers to adapt, reflect, and innovate beyond fixed methods. The post-method approach has 3 parameters, the first one being particularity, that says that teaching should be responsive to the specific needs, identities, and context of learners. And this responsiveness should come with reflection, and that's where practicality comes in. It says that teachers must theorize their practice and practice what they theorize, bridging action and reflection. And beyond the particular and the practical, education also carries a broader responsibility, and that leads us to the last parameter, possibility. It is inspired by Paulo Freire's work, and it brings critical thinking and sociocultural transformation through education. And now that we have the theoretical of this study, I would like to present the methodology. This research is a microgenetic study as conceptualized by Wirch, and it observes the cognitive development of individuals through a relatively short period of time in order to see development step by step. Also, the research took place at a private language institute located in Balneário Camboriú, Santa Catarina, Brazil. And the participants of the study were a mentor, me, and an experienced TFL teacher named Alice. And I would like to say how data was collected through 3 phases. The first one being a semi-structured interview, because I wanted to investigate Alice's understanding of the post-method approach before classroom observation, which is phase 2 of the study. I conducted 12 classroom observations. And finally, phase 3, I held 10 mediation sessions. And the reason why there are 12 observed classes and only 10 mediation sessions is because I watched 2 classes instead of 1 in 2 different moments. And here is how data was analyzed following 3 stages according to the 3 specific research questions. The first stage involved analyzing data collected from the semi-structured interview and the initial mediation sessions because I wanted to see how Alice understood the post-method approach and taught in accordance with it in the beginning of the study. The second stage consisted of analyzing the video recorded classroom observations to see how her understanding and teaching develops during mediation sessions. And finally, stage 3 consisted of analyzing data from both classroom observations and mediation sessions to see in what ways her changes in understanding and classroom practice can be attributed to my mediation. And now let's move on to the results. The first research question to understand how Alice initially perceived the post-method approach. In general, we can say that the parameters began as superficial concepts, viewed as distant theoretical labels rather than concepts that could be explored in her teaching. And they were not part of Alice's DPD activity, and they did not inform her pedagogical decision making. And here we can see her responses in the semi-structured interview. Regarding particularity, Alice brought the importance of adapting the lesson according to the specific needs of the students and the context. Practicality, she highlighted the importance of reflection and planning the lesson before in advance and choosing proper activities for the students. But regarding possibility, Alice's perspective were more related to a communicative goal rather than the critical thinking and sociocultural transformation that the post-method approach advocates for. And this can be reflected in her initial practices. Let's take now a closer look at how Alice taught in accordance to particularity in the beginning of her study. Particularity was viewed as an intuitive practice in the beginning. Here we have one example of the first mediation session in which I asked the purpose of her class, and she answered it was just a simple past. And then after some reflection, she admitted, she remembered that actually her student had mentioned dreams and sleeping in a previous class, and that's what actually motivated her choice of topic. And then I was the one making this bridge and connecting the first parameter, particularity, to this idea. And also in the second mediation session, when I asked again the purpose of her class, she said it was a topic the student liked. It was an easy way to discuss things in English. And she mentioned that she notices that when she involves the students, she brings the students' reality to the topic, they are more engaged. But again, she didn't link that to the first parameter. So I was the one making this link. Now, regarding practicality, this parameter was not taken into account in the early stage. Here we have a moment when Alice had asked her student to read a text out loud. And when I asked her why, she said it was so she could make corrections during the process, pronunciation corrections. And she hadn't considered how it might affect the students' reading comprehension. So I brought theory to her practice, and I mentioned practicality as being a way of understanding the why behind what we do in the classroom. Another example is a class in which grammar was not contextualized to the topic. Her class was about New York and traveling, and she brought grammar examples and activities that were unrelated. And then I explained to her that it would be important, according to practicality, to conduct grammar in a way that was connected to the topic and that was meaningful for the class. And finally, regarding possibility, this parameter was not explored in the early stages. In the first mediation session about dreams and sleeping, when I asked her the purpose of her class, she said it was the simple past. And then I brought possibility as a possibility for her to bring critical thinking to her class. For example, discussing the importance of sleep for mental health. And then in another session, the topic of the class was cooking. And she said that at a moment in that lesson, she started a conversation without planning it. And then it was just something that occurred naturally. And I end up saying that it was a possibility for her to bring all the three parameters of the post method, especially possibility by bringing the critical thinking that the post method advocates for. And now regarding the second research question, to understand how Alice develops her understanding in classroom practice during the mediation sessions, we can say that in general, Alice's pedagogical practice and reasoning improved progressively through a twisting path. And by the end of the study, Alice could provide more nuanced justifications for her choices. She could name the parameters, question her procedures, and reason with greater confidence. And in the classroom, she replaced mechanical activities with intentionally contextualized tasks. Again, let's take a closer look at the parameters. Regarding particularity, this was the first parameter she started naming when challenged, and it seems to be the most consolidated parameter in her teaching. In mediation session 5, when I asked her if she considered the parameters when she planned her class, she said that because of the mediation sessions, she always thinks about her students when prepare, and before that, she just chose topics randomly according to what she thought was interesting. And when I asked her if she could connect to one parameter, she named particularity. And in the last mediation session, when she said that she considered particularity because she changed the topic of her class. She wanted to teach sequencing words like first, next, after that. And the book suggested a topic on cooking, but she knew her student didn't like cooking, so she chose makeup instead. And now regarding practicality, it required constant implicit and explicit mediation to better consolidate it within the topics that emerged. And in Alice's case, it was reading comprehension and contextualized grammar. In this example here, in the middle of the sessions, she again brought a text and asked the student to read out loud. And then when I asked how was her student performance, she said he was confused, and also he had asked her to read again, but this time in silence after that moment. So it was a really important moment for her practice thinking, because she saw theory coming into practice. And she said that after that moment, she always remembered that tip, and she always asked the student to read the text in silence. In another example, in the last research mediation session, she remembered practicality, she named it and used it consciously, justifying the way that she conducted the class. Instead of bringing a fill in the blank activities, which was something she was used to do, she actually brought a more dynamic activity that was more related to the students, how the student could engage more. So it was more meaningful for the student. But I would also like to highlight the challenge of constantly reinforcing this parameter practicality, because it embraces a wide range of methodologies, theories. So it was very challenging to constantly keep it in the mediation sessions, because in every mediation session, something different, something new emerged. So that's why Alice was only able to mention it for the first time and name it in mediation session 8. And now finally, regarding possibility, it was also difficult to integrate this parameter in her classes in the mediation sessions as well, because again, we can bring critical thinking to any topic. So it was hard to constantly reinforce the parameter. Here I have one example from mediation session 7, in which she had brought a video that was connected to the topic, but she didn't ask any questions or connected the video to the topic. And then I asked if she remembered the parameter of possibility, and she said yes, about critical thinking. At that moment, I forgot, but I could have explored the message of the video to discuss neighbors, which was the topic of the class. But in the last mediation session, she named possibility, and because the class was about makeup, and her student was a teenager, she ended the class discussing if there is a right age to start wearing makeup. So finally, regarding research question 3, about my mediation and in what ways her changes can be attributed to my mediation. I can say that Alice's initial understanding of the post method can be attributed to my explicit interventions because I repeatedly named parameters and demonstrated their use in Alice's initial real classroom decisions. And gradually, the bridge between theory and practice shifts through a balance with more implicit mediations, encouraging Alice to generate her own insights. And this balance of implicit and explicit explanations was adjusted session by session, ensuring that mediation was responsive to Alice's participation in the ZPD activity. And here we can see some examples where I was more explicit and implicit. In the beginning of the study, I was more explicit. And also during the mediation sessions, every time I noticed that her ZPD activity had reached a limit, for example, when she asked me for help, then I would be explicit again and bring explanations. But I made sure to bring more implicit prompts by asking her questions that would make her reflect. For example, do you think you can connect this class with the three parameters? How the post method approach could help you with that? But now, looking back and being a little more critical regarding my mediation, I see now that I may have attempted to embrace and address too many aspects in a short period of time. And in my attempt to embrace all the parameters, I was not always clear enough to consolidate them. And while I provided theoretical explanations for certain aspects of Alice's struggles, I did not always extend the same level of clarity to others. And although I asked questions and referenced theoretical concepts, Alice's engagement remained fragmented. And this suggests that Alice required mediation that was more strategic and sustained in relation to the parameters. And finally, to summarize, the results indicate that Alice's pedagogical reasoning gradually evolved through responsive mediation sessions, combined target inquiry and dialogic reflections. In every session, I identified gaps in the teacher's comprehension of the post-method approach and its parameters, and then provided explicit or implicit interventions that were aligned to the teacher's emergent needs, which created a twisting path of advance, review, and conceptual refinement. And by the end of the study, Alice was able to name and apply several principles of the post-method approach more consciously and to make pedagogical decisions that were more clearly grounded in contextual realities and theoretical frameworks. However, considering that robust reasoning is viewed in this study as a more advanced form of reasoning, her reasoning did not become fully autonomous and robust, as she still relied on external prompts to articulate the parameters in depth. So I would like to finish my presentation with a quote from Paulo Freire that, in my opinion, captures the essence of this study, which is, "For apart from inquiry, apart from the praxis, individuals cannot be truly human. Knowledge emerges only through invention and reinvention. Through the restless, impatient, continuing, hopeful inquiry human beings pursue in the world, and with each other." Thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you, Marcella, for your presentation. And now we move to our second part of this event, let's say. So to begin, I would like to invite Matheus, Dr. Matheus André Agnoletto, to participate. As he joins from outside the program, he will be the first to share his insights and contributions to this session. So let me introduce him very briefly. Matheus' work is predominantly grounded in Vygotsky's sociocultural theory, focusing on the professional development of teachers of English as a foreign language, dealing with aspects such as teacher emotions, concept development, the relationship between theory and practice. So exactly what Marcella did in her work. He publishes both nationally and internationally in this field, contributing significantly to the academic discourse. So we would like to thank Matheus and for his time and expertise, as I said. And Matheus, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, then, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I like to start off by thanking both Adriana and Marcella for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to participate in these defenses, and especially this one because it's my area, so it's even better to be here. I would like to congratulate Adriana and Marcella on the work, right? I have a few general comments. I think the text is very well written and organized and clear. I didn't have any problems reading, understanding the concepts you introduced and explain, Marcella, so the reading flows very smoothly, so well done, right? I will focus, since I am from the area, I will focus my comments on the data analysis. I will make a few comments on the introduction and method and review of literature. But I think in order, since we have time constraints, I think I should focus my comments on the data analysis, right? So just, I'm pretty sure Maurice will touch upon some other things related to introduction and method later on, right? But I will focus my comments, like most of my comments, on the data analysis. So first, just starting off with the introduction very briefly, I just want to say that I like the way that you connected Kasdan's ideas, the concept of performance preceding competence, to Vygotsky's alternative to it, like merging scientific and everyday knowledge. Marcel, I think it was a very good way to situate the reader and establish the context of your research. So I think you did this in a very good way. It was a very clever move to do that. So very good job. I have a few other comments on the introduction, but as I said, I'm not going to focus on them. I'm going to send you the text, the file of your thesis later on by email to you and Adriana. Then you can discuss and decide on which suggestions make sense to you and the things that you want to change or not, okay? And the other thing that I want to tell you about the introduction is just I missed some mentions to other Vygotsky-informed studies in the area. So this is part of the genre. This is part of the introduction, right? So I think you could have, in parentheses, you don't have to explore them, but like you mentioned when you start introducing the idea, how Vygotsky and sociocultural theory informs teacher education. I think you could have used some studies just to make a few generalizations, in relation to what happens in the area from a Vygotskian perspective. So you have, like, in our study group, we have plenty of examples that you can use, right? You have Karen Johnson's work that you can use. So I would just add that to your introduction, okay? Moving on to the review of the literature, I'd like to congratulate you, Marcella, on making it way better than it was in your qualifying exam. I don't know if you remember that, but in your qualifying exam, I told you that I found the review of literature too simplistic. And I think you did a very good job making it richer in terms of content and exploring the parallels between Vygotsky and sociocultural theory and teacher education. I like the way that you blended both things, like at the same time that you were explaining Vygotsky and sociocultural theory, you were drawing parallels between the theory and teacher education. So it was very, very easy to read. It flowed very smoothly. So very, very well done. Very good job. Okay. And wait a minute, I see there's something else here. Oh, I made some suggestions throughout the review of literature, right? I'm not going to mention them here, but just some things to add a few more details to your text. Okay, so you can see that. I know you have this limited amount of time after the defense to work on these changes, so you and Adriana can discuss the ones that you want to accept or not. Okay. But they're very minor issues. It was very, very well done. Very good job, Marcella. One thing that I want to ask you about this part is, I don't know if I can ask Marcella a question now and she can respond, or she'll respond later. Can we do that, Adriana? Yeah? Okay. So, Marcella, I would like you to explain to me how do you see the difference between learning and development from a Vygotskian perspective?
This is a very important question because Vygotsky makes a clear distinction between them. I see that learning precedes development in a way that learning can lead to development, right? So that's why my research focused on development and not reading, learning itself, because it is through learning that one can develop concepts. So I would say that learning is the initial phase, and we can learn by cultural tools such as language, for example, books. Well, there are many examples, and with other people as well, especially more experienced others. And this might lead to development. So that's why it's a microgenetic study focused on development.
Okay, so basically learning paves the way for development to take place, right? It's a more social move, right? Process, and then development occurs internally, right? So basically that's it. I'd suggest reviewing the way you talk about learning and development in your study, right? Because I think that sometimes, and I pointed that out to you in your text, at some moments I think you mentioned learning, but I think what you mean is development, right? So I just, it's not that you don't understand, you just explain it to me now, right? I just think that it was just like you confuse it a little bit, I think, in your writing, right? Since they are tightly close to one another, I think that maybe sometimes you confuse the two terms. So I signaled them to you, right? I highlighted them and like throughout the text. So I just suggest reviewing that. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Now I'm going to go to the method. I have just one comment here that I would like to, and again, it's a question. So, and it's related to microgenesis. Okay. The question I have for you is what it is in your study that makes it a microgenetic study?
It is a microgenetic study because I am observing Alice's development. So what I mean is that I want to see if her understanding and teaching according to the post method develops over a very short period of time. So it was 5 months. So that is why it is considered a microgenetic study in my perspective.
Okay, so you're basically focused on process instead of product, right?
Yeah.
It is within a short-term period of time, right? And you're also focusing on the development of very specific psychological functions, right?
Which is the
And I
three
missed,
parameters.
yeah, like how can she start thinking in concepts, right? Let's put it this way. And I missed that in your method, right? I think that you could explore microgenesis a little bit further in your method, right? Because your study is a microgenetic study, so I think that should be very clear, like what it is and how your study can be characterized, can be seen as a microgenetic study. So I think that could be better explored. I gave you some suggestions in the method, right? I highlighted some parts and then I made some comments, right? And the same goes for your procedures for data collection and analysis, right? So I think that a more straightforward connection between the choices you made in terms of data collection and analysis, I think there's this more straightforward connection that could be made between what you did and what microgenesis is, what a microgenetic method is, right? So I think you can explore that a little bit better. And then I gave you some suggestions in the method. Okay?
Yeah, I agree.
So would you like to say anything else about that, or you're okay?
Me? No, I'm okay.
Yeah, no, okay. So now moving on to the data analysis. So this is the section that I have more comments on compared to the others, okay?
Okay.
So the first one, so again, very clear, very organized, Marcella. I didn't have any problems following what you were exploring throughout the whole data analysis. I think you did a very good job choosing, because I've done that quite a few times. I know that's very difficult because we have a lot of data, but we have length constraints, so we cannot add everything that we collected to the final text, the final version of our text. So I think you did a very good job choosing what to include, what to add to your text. So congratulations for you again. The one thing that I think you could mention, could explore again a little bit better, is the idea that, because Vygotsky, the role of language as a mediational tool is central to the theory, right? And what it does to the way we think is of extreme importance, is at the core of the theory. And I think you could add that to your text, to your data analysis. So you were saying all the time, so I did this, I presented a concept, I brought the concept into the discussion so that Alice could connect it to her class and etc. But why? Why are you doing that? Like, what is the importance of bringing the concept into the discussion in terms of, in relation to how Vygotsky saw the role of language in restructuring human thinking? You know what I mean? So I think you can explore that a little bit and it's very easy to do. You can just add a few in a few moments in some parts of your discussion. You can add that, right? And again, I made some comments, I made some suggestions throughout the text. Okay. There are one thing that's related to method that I have to mention here is that some parts of your data analysis, especially the very beginning of it, I think you present some information that I missed in the method and that I see as method. So I think they're a little misplaced. Some paragraphs are a little misplaced. And again, I signal them to you. Okay, you should just in my opinion, you should just move them to the method. You're going to see it when I send you the file. And now I want to discuss a few excerpts with you. Okay. So, wait a minute. I think I made my comments. All my comments I made in the Word file. Okay. I think it's easier to comment and then change some things and add some things that I added. Right. So on page 47, excerpt 7. Just give me a second.
47, right?
Yes, 47. Excerpt 7, semi-structured interview. Right? So that, she says, you were saying, I asked her to illustrate with a practical example of adjusting her lesson to the student's context, right? And then she goes, did you find it?
Yeah, I'm just, it's because mine is another page, but okay.
Okay. So excerpt, she says, se durante a aula, por exemplo, eu estava colocando para ele algumas frases, e se eu trocar essas frases, vou tentar buscar uns exemplos da vida dele, para ver se vai ser mais fácil, então. Talvez eu deixe de lado essas frases prontas que eu trouxe e comece a trazer exemplos mais próximos da realidade desse aluno, do lado profissional, ou enfim, do lado da família. Okay? So, to me here, okay, and then you can just correct me if I'm wrong, it seems to me that she sees particularity and practicality as the same thing. I don't think that's practicality what she's talking about here. I think that's particularity. You know?
That's a very good comment of yours, because I also noticed that at some point of our mediation and her explanations, but at the same time, I think all the three parameters are really connected. So for her to be responsive to the student's profile and context of the class, so she is going to use that to choose the strategies and theory she's going to use in her class. So yes, I think maybe at some point she mixed them up, especially in the beginning of the study. But at the same time, I also see them as very connected. So I didn't see a big problem when she, every time she did that.
Yeah, no, and it's not a big problem, and I agree with you. Your explanation is valid. I think that blends with practicality as well. I would just add that this mention that it seems like it's not quite clear to her what the difference is between practicality and particularity. I would just add that there. Okay?
Yeah.
It's not a big problem. Okay? And then for me, it's page 51. For you, probably 50 because I'm using the Word file. It's the excerpt 1 of the mediation session. Okay?
Yeah.
And then here, this is the moment. I must say that at the beginning, I got a little bit worried, Marcella, because at the beginning of your mediation, you were very explicit, you know? And then when I started reading it, I was like, oh my God, she's giving everything away right from the start, you know? But then you changed, but then you became more responsive. So it was very, very good move. Okay. Very, very sharp choice. Anyway, but what I want to say here is that I think that at the beginning of your mediation, you jumped the gun a little bit. You were just giving everything away from the get-go, right? But then you changed, so that was clever, right? And the only thing I would like you to comment on here in relation to this excerpt, right, for you to add to your analysis, is your intentional move of bringing the scientific concepts, the parameters, into your mediation, right? Because what were you doing there? You were introducing the scientific knowledge to have her analyze her practice through that scientific knowledge, right? And this is what we like. This is one of, I think, Karen Johnson's strongest claims, that this is the number one goal of a Vygotskian based teacher education perspective, right? To present teachers with scientific concepts so that they revisit what they did or what they did not do, right? So I would add a few words on that here just to make it more direct, you know, make it more clear what you did, what your move was here, like the reasoning behind it. Okay. Next, let's see. Okay, on page 72 now. Okay, there is a part. It's after excerpt 10 of the mediation. I'm sorry, session 5. There is a discussion on particularity, and it's very clear that this is the concept that you focused on the most throughout the data collection phase, right? So you provided her with sustained opportunities to link it to her practical activity, right? And I think that should be added to your discussion on page 72 after this excerpt 10, right? So I think you do that at the end. At the end, you kind of like summarize what you did. So I understand you say something like, oh, I see that my mediation focused more on the first parameter, and you said that in your presentation as well, right? But I think this could be added throughout the text, not only at the end of it, right? So show your reader that like you know what was going on at that moment. That's my point. Okay. And on page 74, there were only 2 moments, Marcella, of your whole data analysis that I don't quite agree with you. Okay, all the comments that I've made so far, they are things for you to add. Nothing that I think you misinterpreted or that you said something wrong, right? But there are two things that I don't quite agree with you, and maybe you have an explanation for me that's gonna make sense. I don't know. But on page 74, it's about excerpt 11, mediation session 6. You were talking about it's the lesson in which she was discussing the architecture of houses, comparing Italy to Brazil. That's that, right? Yeah, that's what was happening. Yes. And you use the concept of possibility, the parameter of possibility. You introduce it to her, and then you write about it, right? And as I see, maybe there are some details missing in relation to what she did with that, right? What she asked her students to do. But this is not what I understand by possibility. And I did a few more readings on that. I was like, oh, maybe I misinterpreted, you know. And then after doing some more readings on that, I became more sure that I don't quite agree with you, because when it comes to possibility, there's this idea of focusing on critical thinking. So we know it stems from critical pedagogy, right? In the sense that students should be led to question social norms and educational norms and cultural structures and this kind of thing, right? So it aims to lead students to promote social changes. It aims to promote social changes, right? Like in the way people think in society. So this is very strong when it comes to possibility. And I don't think that's what's happening here. Like she was talking about the structures of the houses. So there's a little bit of like cultural difference in terms of that. But I don't see this transformative power, this idea of challenging identity, power relations, or anything like that in this part, right? And then her response, when you inquire into it, she says that she did that, she chose to do that because her student was going to Italy. And that's the explanation she gives. So she was not thinking of possibility. She was thinking of particularity when she planned that. Do you agree with me?
I do. I think now that I may have oversimplified the concept of possibility, one of the reasons because it's difficult to implement this social transformation and critical thinking in every class. So yes, I see that sometimes I oversimplified this parameter.
Okay.
to cultural differences and yeah.
Okay, I totally get it. So I think that maybe you should talk to Adriana about this, the specific, the way you explain what happened here, and maybe you have to like criticize yourself again. And this is part of the game. You like when we are mediating people, this is part of the game. I did that in my thesis and in my dissertation. Karen Johnson does that, so it's part of the game. Also on page 74, you said something. Although Alice had demonstrated prior understanding of the 3 parameters of the post method framework during previous mediation sessions, blah, blah, blah. Again, I don't agree with you. I don't think she did. As regards particularity, up to that point, yes, for sure. Practicality to some extent, yes, for sure. But not to me, not regarding possibility. I think she started to grasp a little bit of what possibility means at the end of the data collection, So I think this is a strong claim to make here. I signal this to you in the text as well. Okay? I think that here, in this case, on page 74, your discussion should draw on her, should focus on her her progressive, better understanding of particularity and how you, in your mediation, focused way more on that if compared to the other 2 parameters, right? So I think this is what you should discuss here after this excerpt 11, right? So she grasped particularity faster and more deeply if compared to the other 2, because you, in your mediation, were more responsive in terms of that specific concept, that specific parameter, right?
Yeah.
And the other one, which is the very same thing, Marcella, it's on page excerpt 14, page 82 for me, when you talk about the activity, the class she prepared on aliens. That's it, right? Yes. So first, and again, it's not a tricky question. It's just I want to understand, okay? How is that possibility? How would that be possibility? Can you explain that to me?
I'm sorry, it's excerpt 14 or
14, yeah.
14.
Wait.
Because I think it was the one about neighbors.
No, it's the one about aliens, that she talks about aliens.
Let me see. Just one moment, I'm trying to locate that.
Okay.
Okay. Just a moment.
Okay.
Okay, I got it. When she talks about possibility.
Yeah.
May I read the part of the excerpt?
Yeah, of course.
So I asked her if she could relate that class with the parameters. So she said, I think particularity because it's a possibility to put me and the student together on the same topic, discussing funny ideas. And we were close to each other at the moment. By the way, I think it's useful for her. Of course, it's a science fiction class, but it's related to movies from the past, movies nowadays. It's a possibility for her to create opinions about it. Okay, I remember it now. I'm sorry. Actually, the class wasn't exactly about aliens. It was about movies. So the video was about that movie E.T. So again, here I oversimplified the possibility. So for me, I was content when she said that, oh, by having a class related to movies and my student comparing movies from the past and now, days in creating opinions, her own opinions about it. So it is related to possibility.
Okay, yeah,
That's why I
that's
said
what you
that.
said to her, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And I'm sorry, Marcel, it's excerpt 13. I said that wrong to you. It's not 14, 13. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I found it.
And yes. Anyway, so my the thing here for me that was a little bit off is that again, going back to the idea that possibility entails transformation and criticizing social norms and power relations and cultural structures. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That again is not possibility to me. That's not how I see the concept. You know,
Yeah.
because possibility is not just opening up the possibility for a discussion of anything. You know, it's not just like giving your opinion. It's giving your opinion on issues such as like social relations and cultural norms and these things that I just cited. You know, so that would be different. For example, that's the way I see possibility, and I'm mentioning this to you because this is it's not, I don't know much about the parameters, right? I've learned a lot from you by reading your qualifying your text for the qualifying exam, and even more now. So I want to say thank you for that. I've learned a lot reading this. You know, it's easy to mix up them sometimes because the names are similar, so it's kind of like messy sometimes. But anyway, I would see possibility if she had done something like so. There are we are talking about activities like free time activities. So and she presents some free times activities that are usually attributed to boys, what boys do, and then some activities that are usually attributed to girls, what girls do. And like, so soccer is for men, you know, and then like, I don't know, like playing volleyball is usually for women. So do you agree with that? Do you think that could be changed? Why do you think the text presents soccer being attributed to men and volleyball attributed to women? Do you think this is the way it works nowadays? Do you think this is more, you know, this is closer to how people saw gender roles in the past? So that for me would be possibility. You know what I mean?
I totally
Do you agree
agree.
with me? Okay.
Yes, totally. I may have actually I know that possibility has this critical thinking, social cultural transformation, but I may have created my own kind of possibility that is lighter so that I
Okay.
could reinforce it throughout the mediation sessions. Because again, I wanted to consistently reinforce the parameters.
Yeah.
But at some point, I thought, it won't be possible. So
Yeah.
if you were saying that you intentionally created this conversation moment, I'm happy with that. So
Yeah. That's what I felt.
Mhm.
That's what I felt. Yeah, that's what I felt you did. So I would go back to these two parts that I told you, the alien class and then the other one of like comparing the architecture, and I would just not rewrite everything. There's no need for that, but I would maybe modelize some parts, change a few statements, okay, and maybe add this discussion now that you somehow you oversimplified it. You know,
Yeah.
I think that would be more accurate.
Yeah.
You know.
You're right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. And that's it. As I told you, there were only two moments, like these two interpretations that I don't quite agree with you, right? But like the rest of it is very, very good, very clear. And now I'll just like move on to the conclusion because I've already spoken a lot. I'm sorry. Very well written, Marcella. I really like the way you went back to each step of each mediation session and kind of like summarized for your reader what happened. It was great for me because at the end I was like, oh my God, I don't remember what happened at the beginning. And then you did that. So I didn't have to go back to the beginning of your text and reread everything again. So very good job. I have only one suggestion for you here in your implications. And this is something that I really like that you did. you talked about how it is important not only for novice teachers, but also for experienced teachers to constantly reason upon what they do, right? And I think you could explore that a little bit further, you know, in terms of like, I saw that in my doctorate study. You know, I saw an experienced teacher that had been teaching for years, you know, face difficulties in a new environment, in a new context. So this can happen to all of us. This can happen to me. This can happen to you. This can happen to Adriana, who's been teaching for decades, you know? So I think you can explore that a little bit better. There are some studies that you can use, you know, like, not to cite mine, but it's the one that I recall right now, you know, like in my study, you have like me mediating an experienced teacher, you know. I know that I don't quite recall if it's Doran or Golombek. I think it's Meredith Doran. I think she has a study on how she moved to a different context and she felt like a novice teacher. And she's an experienced teacher and she's a teacher educator, you know? So I think you can add that. And what I mean by that is I think you can do that to claim how Vygotsky sociocultural theory can provide teacher educators and teachers with possibilities to continuously reason upon what they do. You know, I think the theory is very rich, and it sets the stage for this kind of transformative teacher education practices to happen. So I think you can add that to your implications. So again, you didn't say anything wrong. It was very good. It's just added. I think you could make it even better, make it richer by adding this. You know. Yes. And this is what I have for you. I'm sorry if I said too much, but my goal here is to help you make it like even better than it already is. Again, I want to thank you for trusting me and inviting me. It was a pleasure to see how you've grown and how your text has changed from your qualifying exam to your the final version, right? So thank you very much. Thank you, Adriana, again. And I think that's it.
Okay, Marcella, would you like to say anything?
Actually, I would just like to say that I agree with everything you said, and they were really pertinent comments. Thank you for that. I'm going to improve my research even better. Thank you very much for your time, effort, and feedback.
Okay, so thank you, Matheus, for sharing your knowledge with us. Your comments are very insightful and valuable, so that they are thoughtful contributions, I think, and they will certainly enrich Marcella's work. And if we're talking about robustness, they will enhance the robustness of our discussions, I think. So thank you so much for that. All right, so now I would like to introduce Maria Ester, who's our next member of this committee. And Maria Ester has been deeply involved in the field of English as a foreign language as well, teaching and learning, EFL teaching and learning, with a particular emphasis on writing. Her work focuses on, let's say, advancing writing strategies, effective writing strategies, fostering learner development, and contributing to broader discussions on language education, let's say. And her contributions are particularly significant in the Latin American context, where her research and practice have mostly concentrated. Right, Maria Ester? So thank you for being here, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Adriana and Marcella, for the invitation, okay, to be part of that discussion. This discussion here today. It's a pleasure to be here, to sit with you. Now I'm part of your research group. So I usually meet you every 15 days to discuss Vygotsky's sociocultural theory. So it's a very good opportunity here to also to learn, okay, theory and the method of analysis. And we always learn a lot, okay, with those invitations. So thank you, Marcella and Adriana again, okay. Marcella, so congratulations. I think your thesis for me was a pleasure to read. It's well written, the reading flows, it's reader friendly, you use academic language, the transitions between sections and paragraphs, it's clearly structured and thoughtfully composed. I think you demonstrate ability to engage critically and consistently with both theory and method, okay, integrating them in a coherent and meaningful way, okay. So it's really good, okay. And so I think you establish your objectives and you reach them. So that's very good, the end. And so let me see here.
Here's the person who works with writing, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it's really good coming from you, right?
No, that's very nice. Okay. Let me see here. And then that shows, that indicates not only a strong command of the subject matter, but also academic maturity and methodological rigor. Okay, so congratulations. Now I'm going to proceed to more detailed discussions, okay, on your thesis, contributions, areas for further reflections. As Matheus mentioned, I'm going to focus more on the method, because he's an expert on the analysis of the method of analysis of sociocultural theory. So I'm going to focus more on that, okay? Just to help you to, maybe you can discuss with Adriana some of the points that I'm going to raise here today, okay? And then you decide what you're going to do with that. Let me see here, starting with your abstract. I thought it was a very good abstract, okay? And I don't have much to say about it. Everything is there, I think. Moving now to your introduction, Marcella, I think you establish in a very good way, okay, your territory of study. You situate your reader, by presenting the concepts, okay. I also agree with Matheus, because you don't mention the post method in your general objective. I think as this is a central aspect of your work, I think maybe you should discuss a little bit about it with your advisor, okay? And it's even mentioned in your objective, in your abstract, okay? In your abstract, you mentioned that, okay? So maybe I would include that in your general research question, okay? Okay. Let me see here. Okay, no mention of the post method in your general research question. And I also agree with Matheus that maybe you could have mentioned other Vygotsky informed studies in the area, okay? And I've been reading, I think, Viviani's I don't remember, but they also mention in their introductions, Adriana, their research groups and the research conducted by the groups. I think it's important to mention that.
Yes.
Mention
Sorry,
authors.
guys.
To mention authors from our program and
Yes.
everything. Okay. To give credit to
Of course.
the students.
That would be good.
Okay, concerning your review of literature, I think the concepts are presented in a logical way. The parallels among them are clearly drawn. Okay, and I can see that you really grasped what the theory is about. Okay, in my view. Okay, let me move on to the method. Okay. The method, just a second here, I'm old school here. I print some of the sheets are printed. Okay, Marcella. So I think some of I missed some things here in your method section. So I'm going to mention them here, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Matheus talked about microgenesis, okay? But I missed some details about how you collected your data, okay? Especially what you did in your mediation sections, okay? I think on page 50, you mentioned that, okay, in your analysis, but I think you should have included that in your method section, okay, Marcella, because then it's more clear to your reader, okay? You say that, for example, even about your school, I think. I don't know if you have like a training before teachers on the post method with your teachers, okay? And I think maybe you should have included that, okay? I missed some more context about, okay, the procedures you have in your school, okay? You and your partner, okay? So the students, about your students, then you mentioned some of the things in your analysis, but I think you should have put them and mention that in your method, okay? For example, you talk about your interview, on page 38, for example, you have, I asked questions such as, then I question myself, you see, such as, what does she mean? Didn't you have a script? I mean, how did you proceed with that? Okay, such a question such as, okay, and why have you chose those questions? Okay, chosen those questions. I think that information should be there in your method. Okay. Then let me see here. Okay. Microgenesis. Okay. Let me see here. Then you talk about your teacher, nah? She's an experienced English teacher. Okay, that's okay. And but how long was she teaching at your school? Maybe dealing with that method. You could have included that, okay? Page 36, 37, okay. Okay, and even talking more about because you told, now you mentioned on page 38, Marcella, that you required the teacher participant to read an academic article on the subject, okay? So, and then you talk about lectures. I think I missed more details on that, okay? So, I don't know what you did, actually, with her, did you sit together with other teachers? Okay, it was just for her. And then you mentioned that just one article wasn't enough, okay? And then you talked more about that. But even in your method, I missed more context about that, okay?
Mhm. Yeah.
And when you say here, on page 39, okay, the explicit approach acknowledged that a single reading of an academic article on post method was insufficient for a structured understanding of such complex topics, okay. From the fourth session onwards, okay, the interactions shifted to a more dialogic and implicit nature. So how did you do this? Then I asked myself here, okay. Let me see here. What else? Okay. And I missed also some more details regarding your data collection, okay? So I think more that, then I'm going to give you my copy, and then I have some of the things that I'm not going to be so detailed today. Okay? But more details on that, okay? On the context of your research. Let me see here. Okay, I believe parts, okay. Your data analysis, okay. Some parts of your data analysis have to do with data collection, okay, not to data analysis, okay. So I signal that in the file I can send you my file, okay. Let me see here. I think that's it. Data analysis, okay. I have to tell you that I missed some. I think Matheus gave a more detailed. He made more detailed comments on that. But I just want to point out here that I missed some connections, okay, to your theory and the method, okay. Maybe you could have brought some authors' words into the discussion. I think I missed a little bit of that, okay, to support some of your claims. That's it, okay. For example, when you say you used implicit and explicit mediation, why did you use that? Why is this important? Okay. I also missed the reasoning behind your choices as the mentor in some moments, okay. Like I was less explicit at the beginning. Why? Sometimes you do that, sometimes you don't, some more, okay. You could develop a little bit more on that. Okay? So moving now, preparation. Matheus has already mentioned some of the points that I made here concerning your analysis. Okay, Matheus, you talked too much. There's nothing else. Nothing else.
I'm sorry.
To say. I'm just kidding here. Okay. But now moving to your conclusion, okay, Marcella?
Okay.
I think it was well written. I like it the way you went back to each interaction, okay? As Matheus mentioned here, now you put everything together. That's very nice. You summarized what happened during each session. One thing that I forgot here, I forgot to tell you in the beginning that concerning your phases, okay, in the method, just remember right now, okay, because you say that phase 2 you have the observation, and phase 3 you have the mediation. Isn't it the same thing? You just have phase 1 and phase 2. Maybe because, as I understand that, you have phase 1 in which you observed, and then you had the mediation, huh? The session.
Yes, I understand what you mean, because although I had classroom observations, I also had mediation sessions, so they happened at the same time. So I observed one class,
Yes.
and then so yeah, I'm not sure if I can call them different phases, but I just wanted to point out in my methodology that there were these two different moments
Mhm.
they happened at the same time.
At the same
But-
time,
Yeah.
I don't know if you can maybe, I don't know. You have to discuss with Adriana. So I thought it was just one thing, okay? Doing both things, but that's at the same time. I don't know.
That makes sense. We even talked about that, didn't we, Marcella?
Yeah, actually, I have to highlight here for the committee that the method was the chapter that we rewrote. We had to rewrite it many times because it was a little tricky. Before I mentioned phases for data collection and data analysis, and it was confusing. So we rewrote it so many times that I think some things are missing. So yes, I think we have to work on that. So thank you for your comments. They're really insightful.
Yeah, even now you say that usually you have around 5 students per class, but I don't know how many students in each class. So everything should be in your method, okay? Just more context. Okay, and so moving back to your conclusion, okay? So I think now your summary there, okay, helped me visualize your progress in a straightforward way. Okay. Matheus talked about your implications. I think he's right. Okay, I haven't thought about that, but it would be nice, okay, to say, because even when I was reading about your participant, she's an experienced teacher with 5 years. She has been teaching for 5 years now. I think that's the number of years that she has as she's being experienced being a teacher. But I was thinking that as Matheus was talking about, even Adriana that has been teaching for decades, and when you have a new methodology, a new context, you have to learn everything again, okay, and revisit what you know about teaching and what you can not apply, okay, that's not the right word, in that new context, new methods. So we are always learning and try to, okay, to deal with new contexts and new students, and then you're going to revisit, okay, things that we have learned. We are always learning, She's been teaching for 5 years. Adriana and I, we have been teaching for 35 years. Okay, and we are still 40 years. We are still learning, and sometimes you don't know, okay, what to do, and then we have to study again and revisit our practice, and so we are always, we are always changing.
I completely agree with you. I saw that the theory says that a novice EFL teacher is a teacher who has been teaching for 2 years.
2
But I
years?
think,
Okay,
yeah,
good.
2 years, but I think 5 years is, I don't know if it's too soon to be
A very
considered.
experienced
Yeah,
teacher.
I think we should have a semi-experienced EFL teacher.
So we are very experienced, Adriana.
Yeah.
Very, very experienced. Okay, so so after finishing everything, Marcella, I have to ask you, okay, what would you do differently?
Oh my goodness. How much time do I have to answer this question?
So by
Well,
now, what would you do if you had to do it again?
this is a very nice and important question, and it was something I was
Yeah.
talking to Adriana in our last
Yeah.
meeting, right, Adriana?
That's
I
right.
started crying my pitangas out and saying, "Oh, but when I read my analysis, I think, oh, I should have done that. I shouldn't have done this, and that." And then Adriana was, patiently listening to me, and she said, "Wow, Marcella, look how much you have learned with your master's journey." And it was really important for me. So thank you, Adriana, for that. Yeah, I feel more confidence confident regarding my research. But now to answer your question, if I could, I wouldn't embrace all the three parameters. Oh God, no. I would have chosen one. Maybe I would have, of course, introduced the three concepts. But then in my semi-structured interview, I should have chosen one regarding what I think. Well, I would have to consider my criteria, of course, maybe particularity or possibility, because it was the concept that she misunderstood the meaning. But I think this was something I would do. And also, but just one comment, I don't think it's a bad idea to introduce the three parameters, but I think for you to do that, you should be an experienced mentor, which I'm not. So I am in the beginning of my journey as a mentor, perhaps one day a teacher educator. Yeah. And I think that in my case, I should have chosen one. Adriana warned me. I have to say I was the stubborn one because I thought, oh, the three parameters, they are all connected. I can do this. And then in the middle of the journey, I said, no, I can't. But then it was too late. And also, I think I would have prepared myself better to be more strategic in my mediations, because in the beginning of the study, as Matheus mentioned, everybody was worried. I think, oh, Marcella is giving everything in the tray, de bandeja. So what is she doing? I confess that maybe I wasn't so prepared. So in the end of the study, I could see my development as well as a mentor, which was really, it was amazing to see how I developed as well. It was not only Alice. So I think I would have prepared myself more and understand which way I wanted to go, and not just, I know that it's important to be responsive to the emergent needs of the teacher, but also it is important for us as mentors and teacher educators to know where we want to go. So
Okay, I think you answered my second question.
Oh.
How have you changed as a teacher, educator, or mentor? No? Okay, good. And one last question, okay, from now on.
Good questions, Nika. Very good questions. Very good questions.
Okay, would you change anything in your school?
Yes. Actually, after I enrolled the master's, my business partner and I, who is watching me, we started really implementing, considering better, thinking about our teacher education meetings and programs. And it's been really nice to interact with the teachers here in our school. And I see that we have a lot to improve and develop. And as Matheus said, this is part of the game. So the masters prepared me to see how much I still have to learn, everybody, not only me, but everybody. But it gave me a direction, what I want my students, my teachers here at the school to understand, and how I can do that. In the past, I would only explain or say, oh, read this article, and after that, you will understand the theory and you will be able to, Matheus, sorry, but apply, yeah.
Yes.
Apply it. I know you don't like this word.
I also use the word.
Yeah, it's because I can't think of anything else now. But in the past, I would think that's enough. And because of our research group, I know other ways of doing that. So it's valuable, really valuable for me as a professional as well.
Good, very good. Okay, you know that yesterday, Adriana and I, we were having lunch together and discussing if because it's worth to do what she does because it's just a small thing. And now I can see that, as we say in Portuguese, trabalho de formiguinha, but it's worth it. Okay, Adriana, now I have the answer to what we've been discussing. Okay, so very good. Okay, congratulations again, Marcella. Okay, I hope you can continue this work as a little ant.
That's true. Thank
A
you,
small
Professor.
ant, I don't know how to say that, a formiguinha, okay, in your school. Congratulations, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ester and Professor Matheus, for your feedback again. Now, Adriana and I have a lot to discuss, right, Adriana?
Yeah, we do.
Can I just say something else? I know I've spoken a lot already, but
You can,
Yes,
you
sure.
certainly can, Matty.
okay. So first, I'm gonna start with the bad part. It's just this slap on the wrist, as we say in Portuguese, puxãozinho de orelha. That I wrote down here and I forgot to tell you. When you were in your presentation, and it has to do with what Ester said about using other authors' words of the Vygotsky and sociocultural theory and second language teacher development throughout your data analysis, right? I think something very important for us is to own the terminology of the theory we study, right? To own the terminology of what we study. So when you were when you were presenting, you said like, oh, and I gave her this tip. You didn't give her a tip. You mediated her. You know what I mean?
Yes,
so I think
yes.
just a slap on the wrist is a little one. Okay.
Of course, you are totally right.
But on the other hand, some compliments. I think that Marcella, we have been talking to one another since the beginning of your master's study, and I can see how much you've grown. And something that is very important to me when I work with someone like writing something, or when I teach my students, or when I work with as a teacher educator with teachers, is how much effort that person puts into improving themselves. And I think you did a brilliant job. You did a very good job. And I think you're a very dedicated person. I think your school has a lot to gain with the experience and the knowledge you've developed throughout your master's studies. And I think this is one of the most important things about, I would say, any profession. How much time are you devote to becoming better? I think for life in general, like a better person in general, a better professional, and I see that in you. I see that you are interested in being better, in becoming better. And I think this is more than 50% of the work that we have to do. So congratulations on that as well.
Thank you very much for your kind words. Thank you.
Okay, so let me extend my appreciation to Maria Ester for your thoughtful contributions, Nika, offering meaningful perspectives that will undoubtedly enrich the final version of this work. Your eyes, your view of this work is very important because, as I said before, you work with writing and then you have this very sharp view into that. So it is very important to us as well. Okay, and finally, I also want to congratulate Marcella. Exactly for what Matheus said, Marcella was very effortful. She was not lazy. She was never lazy. When we talked about the work, the writing, things that I pointed out, she said, oh my God, I couldn't have done that. I will change. I still have time. give me some time and I'll still do it, you know. So she never wanted to stop. And I am pretty sure that this trabalho de formiguinha aí, que a Nika fala, I'm even switching to Portuguese now. O trabalho de formiguinha que a gente, né, que muitas vezes a gente recebe a crítica de que é o que a gente faz, we work on one basis, with one-on-one basis, we will be able to disseminate with this kind of work. For example, Marcella now has a school. So we're working with a one person who has a partner who is also a professional. The two of them are talking about this. They are educating new teachers. They are working with the same perspective of making the teacher think, bringing what the teacher has, right, as a point of departure for the work, and then working with that. And the teacher will also see the changes that he or she is facing, and then will possibly, take that to colleagues, new teachers, and whatever. So congratulations, Marcella. It was a pleasure working with you. And I think I'm done for this moment. So we now have to go somewhere with Carol. Marcella, can you please wait a little so
Sure.
that we go to another room and talk about this and be back in a minute? Okay?
Okay. Thank you, everybody, again.
Thank you. Let me do this. No, here. Deixa eu Hello.
Hello.
Estamos
Welcome
de
back.
volta. Ok, estamos de volta para eu ler a ata. Deixa eu catar a ata agora. Pô, cada vez que eu saio da ata, ela some de mim. Aqui, ok. Ata de número 12, 2025, PPGI. Ata de sessão pública de defesa de dissertação de Marcella Lorenzato Barontini. Aos 13 dias do mês de julho de 19...
Opa!
Meu Deus! Aos 13 dias do mês de junho de 2025, aqui ainda está na ata às 10 horas, depois a gente colocou uma observação, às 10 horas, na plataforma Zoom, foi realizada a sessão pública de apresentação e defesa de dissertação na área de concentração Estudos Linguísticos e Literários, da discente Marcella Lorenzato Barontini, intitulada Developing the Robustness of an EFL Teacher's Reasoning with an Eye on Pedagogical Decisions, a Sociocultural Perspective to Teacher Education. De acordo com a portaria número 13 de 2025 do PPGI, a banca foi composta pelos seguintes membros: doutora Adriana de Carvalho Kuerten Dellagnelo, LLE-CCE UFSC, orientadora; doutora Maria Ester Wollstein Moritz, LLE-CCE UFSC, examinadora; e doutor Matheus Agnoletto, Universidade Federal de Santa Catarina, examinador externo. Na verdade, aqui não seria Universidade Federal, seria pesquisador autônomo, não é isso, Carol? Sob a presidência da primeira. Houve participação por meio de sistemas de interação de áudio e vídeo em tempo real pelos seguintes membros: doutora Adriana de Carvalho Kuerten Dellagnelo, doutora Maria Ester Wollstein Moritz e doutor Matheus Agnoletto. Com base no resultado da defesa, a banca examinadora propõe que seja aprovada, devendo a versão definitiva do trabalho ser entregue em até 90 dias. Às 10 horas e 44 minutos, foi lavrada a presente ata e encerrada a sessão, que vai assinada pelo candidato e pelos membros da banca. Muito bem, dona Marcella, mestre Marcella, parabéns a você.
Parabéns, Marcella.
Muito bem, peraí,
Obrigada,
deixa eu
gente.
voltar aqui. Muito bem, querida. Parabéns.
Ufa, agora vou beber minha água.
Respira, Marcela, respira.
Agora respira.
Respira.
Tá ótimo. Agora eu preciso fazer uma pergunta para a Carol. Carol, o Matheus ali, que está como Universidade Federal e, ao mesmo tempo, examinador externo, aquilo eu preciso colocar lá embaixo nas observações também?
Professora, coloca sim. É porque como o Matheus já tinha cadastro, eu acho que não apareceu essa informação.
Tá,
A gente não percebeu que deveria alterar ali como, né?
tá. Então
Não
eu
sendo da
coloco.
UFSC. Coloca a observação da mesma forma do horário, você coloca essa observação do Matheus.
Tá, então peraí. Vou colocar. Eu coloquei, houve uma pequena alteração de horário, a defesa teve início às 9 e o examinador externo, doutor Matheus Agnoletto, é profissional autônomo? Como que é, Carol?
Pesquisador independente.
Pesquisador independente. Ok. Feito. Então, agora eu baixo isso, gente, com as modificações e vou mandar para vocês em seguida com um link para assinatura. Pode ser?
Pode. Uhum.
Então, deixa eu botar aqui. Deixa Deixa eu ir lá no meu PPGI. Bancas. Ok. Tá bem, meus amores. É isso. Deixa eu voltar aqui na imagem de vocês. É isso. Muito obrigada mais uma vez ao Matheus, à Nica. A participação de vocês é sempre bem importante, esse olhar de vocês é bem importante. Marcela e eu vamos comentar e, com certeza, como é que diz? Incorporar as sugestões de vocês ao texto. A gente agradece muito, sabemos que vamos melhorar com isso, tá bom?
Com certeza, foram
Muito obrigada, Carol, querida, brigadíssima.
Parabéns mais uma vez, Marcela e Adriana.
Marcela, nossa.
Obrigada, queridos, muito obrigada. Marcela, parabéns, querida.
Obrigada pela
Muito
paciência
sucesso.
também, prof.
Imagina, querida, tudo certo.
Beijo.
Depois a gente se acerta, né, Marcela, para conversar. Matheus e Nica vão mandar as teses, né? Tá bom, ok. Beijo, beijo.
Beijo, tchau.